you and probably your management and leadership team are going to want to know, hey, great, we have this target account list, we're reaching out, we're doing all this stuff. How many accounts have been worked in X amount of period of time? How many accounts have we actually had a phone or some conversation with?
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have a very special interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. And occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. As a reminder, if you like the content that we're sharing here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today is the second installment in our month-long series deep diving into all things account-based prospecting. As a reminder, we recently launched our new product, Account-Based Prospecting, ABP for short, which is the recruitment industry's first native prospecting engine. So what the heck does that mean? With B2B data enrichment for both contacts and companies, ABP eliminates fragmented workflows and expensive third-party subscriptions to help you find and contact the right decision makers at your target client companies. Long story short, you get to go from being reactive with your biz dev to proactive. So today's guest, she's no stranger to ABP, or what's called ABM in the software space, a self-proclaimed revenue operations and data nerd. Today, we're chatting with Sidney Waterfall, VP of Marketing at OpenBrand, a real-time market intelligence platform for brands and retailers to leverage data and AI-driven insights to understand why they're winning and losing market share and to measure it all. So I'm particularly excited about this conversation because not only is Sidney the ultimate data and systems thinker, but she's also recently implemented an ABP strategy at OpenBrand. So what she shares will be coming from real and recent experience. Whew, all right. That was a long intro. Sidney, welcome to the show.
That was a run. I love it. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be here.
Good. Yeah, I always love to geek out with you. So, for listeners, Sidney and I also used to work together. So this is us probably keeping things very business professional during this conversation as we chat through. But yeah, if you hear some inside jokes or anything, I'm sorry in advance. So yeah, you're at OpenBrand. Tell us a little bit about just like OpenBrand. How long have you been there, and why, when you started, you're just like, I am running an ABP strategy here. Like that's the move for us.
So when I was, before I even accepted the position, which I've been in for about 7 months now. So, 2 full quarters going into the third quarter, measured in quarters, as I'm sure you are as well. So before I went into this specific role in this company, it was clear that the go-to-market strategy of how to drive growth for this business was as tailored, personalized, more like high touch account-based marketing or prospecting approach. So we sell to very large companies, companies that you probably have products in your house from, Shark Ninja, LG, a couple big names like that produce a lot of products that consumers buy. And they have great margin on those products. Moving market share and selling those products mean a lot to these companies. And the purchase cycle for a consumer is not every week or every month, like a bag of chips or a new piece of clothes. Like think about how many times that you've bought your podcasting headphones. Probably once, right? So the point of all of this is to say we sell competitive intelligence data, which is like market share, pricing, promotion data, ad data, and then also mind share, consumer sentiment, consumer insights to these companies that is specific to durables. That's really our niche. I know a lot of like recruitment agencies and providers also have their niche where they're like, this is where I excel and I know how to get the best talent. So I think it's actually, even though the industries are very different, probably pretty applicable. But we have a wide TAM in terms of revenue, but in terms of number of accounts, the accounts that we really care about is going to be smaller. It's going to be a list of 1,000 to 2,000 accounts versus 10,000, or something like a ClickUp, which you could literally sell to like anybody who uses a computer. So that's kind of why it was very clear that we needed to take this approach.
And you came into that where it's like the company had already pretty well said, there's 1,000 to 2,000 accounts that we're going to hit. But I'm sure, it's like you could sell to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of companies. So what led the company to be like, no, we actually are just going to keep it honed in. We're going to niche down. Like, it's a pretty slim list, all things considered.
Is really our product and our product focus. There's a lot of solutions that also go into the CPG and also go into the e-com space and try to dabble and like fit that same data approach and way that they collect data and surface the data to an e-com or CPG brand or product. Much different life cycle, much different development time, much different way that you promote and drive those products. Like, it's a completely different life cycle. So our niche was like, we're going to be the best in this because like this cookie cutter way doesn't really fit well, or the best way in it's not like totally solving the need. So that's why it's, the company was brought together specifically to focus on this niche inside the market that we felt was very underserved with a data perspective. And so from there, it's, okay, who's going to be the customers that we already have, that, what are some of the commonalities? How could we sell to them? We are a data product, so we have a little bit of advantage. Like, if we don't have data on you, we probably can't sell to you, right? So that's a little bit of a hack, which is kind of nice. But it's also, as we think about expanding our products and expanding the categories that we go into, it's thinking of, okay, what does that category take to set up? What's the TAM in there? How do we prioritize our roadmap based on, revenue impact versus, one or two customers maybe wanting it. So.
Yeah. Okay. So this segues well into kind of like the first thing when we think about, so most recruiters, they've relied on a traditionally a reactive approach to business development. They see a job's been posted, then they reach out. They go and use an MPC approach. Hey, I've got a great candidate for you. What do you think? Account-based prospecting is a much more proactive effort, and it's something that not many recruitment agencies have done before. And so a lot of that starts with some of the things that you're hinting at here. It's like you need to understand your market, map all the data points out. So you've touched on a few already. You've talked about company sizes, revenues, different things like that. But what do you think are some of the most important data points to understand when you are starting to figure out like who is my ideal like target account market? Sorry, ICP list?
Yeah. So, I mean, the exact variables are going to be specific to your business, but where I would start and where we did start is you need to understand the companies that you've recently closed and why you've won with them. So you can look at a list of like all of your closed won customers, all of your recent closed won customers, and maybe customers who've actually like renewed or stayed with you or came back for, a different service offering or a different add-on kind of package, if you will. And what you're trying to look for is some commonalities and some unique things outside of like company size or industry that are a little bit more straightforward that you can drill down even more, because that's what helps you get really specific. So the understanding who gets the most value from your service, we kind of actually did this at the Refine Labs days a while ago, but it was like the niche was they had to, not only just company size and funding were very like obvious triggers for us, but they also had to spend on more than 2 channels versus like 2 to 3 channels versus just 1 channel. They were a much better fit for us. That way we see that we kept them longer. So like those are like kind of those unique things that are not necessarily a data point in your CRM. You kind of have to like go put those together in the accounts. So for us, we, looked at, okay, where do we win? Why do we win? It was a little unique because we had 4 companies that came together as one. So we looked at all of why did we win for each of these use cases, and each of these solutions. And we then went, past some firmographic type data, but really into what are the team sizes that we typically see in departments that we work with, like our core department that we sell into. And that varies by account type. So then we said, we need to make sure that we have our account types kind of mapped, because there's not a one size fits all. Like, we sell to brands and we sell to retailers. We sell to global companies, we sell to non-global companies. And so kind of getting that minutia in the detail when you're looking at that big list of happy customers or customers that have stayed on, I think is worth doing the work up front a little bit. So that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah. How long did you spend just kind of sifting through all that data when you were getting started? So obviously you didn't just come in and you're like, yep, I'm going to take all the accounts they told us to run with. That's what I'm focusing on. And you probably didn't just spend 4 hours just like, oh, here's a win-loss report of last year and our current customers. This is our perfect fit. Like, how much time did you spend thinking through this?
I think so we did have a slight cheat code again over other companies, because we used our product data and we leaned heavily on our product data to help us really make sure we had a rounded out market. Because obviously if we don't have data on you, we can't sell data. Like, if we don't have data on your brand, you're probably not going to buy data for other brand that we're competing against. You might, if you're launching a new product, we get lucky every now and then, but it's likely not going to happen. So we leaned a lot on product data, which was nice because we could pull that. We did have that advantage. I've never had that advantage at any other company. But this process took probably nuts from the time we sat down and said we need a target account list and it needs to be tiered and we need to operationalize this. It probably took 2 months to really have everyone in the organization agree on this and be like, yep, and get it operationalized in our CRM. So it's not just a couple day sprint. I mean, it could be, but it's probably not going to be very good.
We just went through the same thing. We're practicing what we preach. We're running an ABM strategy here, which is we're on the opposite side of you. We have such a large pool of people who could use Loxo, but it's who do we spend our time? Who do we focus on more based on, just like you said, who's a great fit customer, who's staying here for a long term? And we spent 3 months going through it, that same exact thing of just not just, okay, who are all the accounts out there, but what makes them a good fit? How do we define it? How do we get alignment across all the different teams? So yeah, just for anyone listening, what you said, it hits the nail on the head. This isn't just a quick couple hour sprint. You want to do this properly because this is the single biggest data input that's going to fuel everything that comes after it.
Yeah, I would say be meticulous on this end, and take your time versus over engineering. I don't know what sequence or cadence you're going to put them into, or because if you're putting them into an awesome sequence or cadence, but it's the wrong account, it still doesn't matter. You have to balance that. And I find that a lot of people kind of over obsess on the outreach part and the targeting and the campaigns part. And you should maybe kind of flop that, because that's the foundation to your house. If it's not good, good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could have the perfect message, but if it's to the wrong people, it's not going to land. It doesn't matter. It's not applicable. Okay, so why you win, why you lose, previous customer data, your own proprietary data. What other data points are you looking at or incorporating early on?
So we look a lot at market data. So for us, our right now is a wild time with everything going on in the economy. The economy plays a huge role in consumer purchasing, manufacturing, tariffs, all this kind of stuff. So we actually, do put a decent amount of market data that applies to our customers. So what does that look like for us? It's what are consumers still buying? We actually run a consumer survey. So it's nice that we already have some of this data, but we like to use that, like what we ask consumers in our survey, like what categories and products are you, pushing out spend on? What are you buying in the next 90 days? Like, so we kind of use that to help us like prioritize. Again, that's like a little niche to us. But some things that I definitely used in the past are going to be like headcount trends, anything that you could like scrape off of somebody's website, whether that be a tool or software that they use, what kind of, CRM they might use, job alerts. I think if you're waiting for a job alert for this audience, you're probably a little too late. But we look at, for upsell specifically, we'll look at other, like say they're already a customer. We have a big expansion motion, so it's very important to us. And we see like other department that we're not really in yet, or we don't have a relationship with, and that department starts growing, or that department starts hiring a key leader, like we are like, oh, this is a good opportunity for us to expand our relationship with this account and like cross sell, upsell into other departments. So that's kind of an example of some of the data that we'll look at and bring in. Financial earnings are very important to us because a lot of the companies we work with are public, so we get a lot of their financial data. So we use that as like another kind of input as well.
Yeah. There's a couple of interesting things in there. So one, talking about like expanding into other departments. So for recruiters, that's equally applicable. You start with, say, the finance department says we can't find a controller. Help us find a controller. If you focus in that specific industry that they serve, say it's a manufacturing company, find out, well, they're also going to need sales reps. They're also going to need customer support or anything else. It's like, oh, like I know this industry like the back of my hand. Like, can you make an introduction, or how can I do that? So very applicable to recruiters as well. And thinking about like, don't just make a placement once and then move on, try to find another company. It's like, no, leverage that and look at the signals. Like you said, like what can you understand to really grow within that company?
Yeah, that's a good use case.
Yeah. One thing you said in there that I loved, you guys are a data company. You've got more data than most companies could dream of, but you said you do something simple. You run your own survey just to get market indicators, kind of understand like, what are you still buying and all that stuff. How powerful is that and just helping to gather some of that information? Because I know a lot of recruiters, I mean, even just marketers like us, sometimes they're scared to be like, oh, if I'm asking them, they're going to think like, why don't I have the answers, or why don't I know this? But oftentimes like that's some of the single best inputs that you can get. So how'd you guys land on like, hey, let's actually do these surveys? And then what are some of just the biggest takeaways, or how are you utilizing them moving forward?
So one of our products is the longest running consumer tracking survey for the durables industry. And so we ask static amount of questions to thousands of consumers a day that like never change, right? Because it's like tracking trends over time. But we have the ability to add in some questions to those surveys depending on what's going on. And so, I am a big fan of like customer surveys, which there's a lot of like tools that you could do. We were just lucky that we had our own survey that was already going to consumers. And, when everything kind of, happened with the new administration, like we knew like anything with the economy and the financial markets, like really our customers pay attention to because it really affects them. And so we started asking like, are you planning on delaying purchases? If so, what categories? Are you planning on pulling demand forward? If so, what categories? What types of purchases? How much? Like some of these additional questions, one, just for market research, two, great marketing content. Like as a marketer, I'm like, this is great. I can like publish a report on this and send it to our customers. But B, it also is like, we know what categories and like they're kind of like industry stuff, and like product types are getting hit the hardest right now. So like maybe let's not prioritize those accounts like at this moment. Maybe let's prioritize some other accounts at this moment. They're still on our target account list, and we're still going to try to, include them in our, more wider one-to-many marketing, but it's not the time to spend more and to get in front of those, because even if we did, they could care less right now because their world is on fire right now, and they're not even going to listen to us. So that's kind of what we've done. And I know a lot of other companies who don't have the luxury of having your own survey panel is, to use like a lower cost kind of way, or even position it as like an industry report. Like, hey, we're publishing this big industry report. We want all hiring managers who hire more than 3 people a year to fill out this survey, and like push it out, and like you use it more as like a pillar, but you're also getting like market research through that, or to just like contract, I'm sure there's like a winter for recruiters or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
We're commissioned something like that.
Yeah, and it's so simple. I mean, we use Google Forms to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have, it's completely free. We're running one right now. State of recruitment and just the industry. But like as a recruiter, things that you said for trends, it's like, are you hiring? Are you going through layoffs? Where are you growing in your company? What are you focusing on? What's your priorities? Like, use this, especially if you're a niche down recruiter. Like, you can spot the trends and use this to inform the signals for how you want to prioritize the accounts that you go after. Yeah, good stuff. I love rabbit holing down these different things with you. On the note of data, there's data everywhere. And speaking of like, you guys are a data provider, how do you separate like the signal from the noise? Because not every data point should carry the same amount of weight. So how do you make sure that you're focusing on the right data points, avoiding ones that might look appealing but are going to send you down unhelpful rabbit holes? Like, how do you navigate that whole thing?
So I would start with so I'll just say what I did. So I started with the non-negotiable data that I thought we should have. Like, it's unacceptable that we don't know this or we don't have this. So that is going to be, information about our target accounts, all of the industries, all of the products that they might sell, and things like that. But on the data side of like more sourcing the data, like, it's unacceptable that we don't know when a target account hits our website. To me, that's like, what are we doing? It's 2025 here. At least in the US, you can do this pretty easily. Sorry, Europe, you have my little challenge there. But, I was like, it's just unacceptable. And it's not very costly to get that data source and that signal integrated. So that was one of the first third-party kind of tools that I brought in, was like, I need to know who's on my website. And because like, even though we don't, you don't have to have a lot of traffic on your website. It's okay. Like, it's not a big cost to do this. Literally, there's free plans out there that you can test. But I want to know the minute a target account hits our website, and even better if you can get that at the contact level. A certain percentage, 30 to 50% of the time, you can get the actual contact. That was like the first thing. So I was like, if we're putting all this work in to get people to engage with us, and we don't even know if they've come to our website, like what are we doing? And then so I operationalized that, and I'm happy to talk about how, but I kind of took the walk, crawl, run approach. So like, that was like a number one basic, super easy to get, super low cost. And I focused just on that first before adding any other outside signal data. I focused on getting it into HubSpot correctly, alerting and fine-tuning those alerts so they're meaningful, and then making sure that we had the follow-up cadence and the sequence that actually showed us this is valuable before I went and grabbed more data. Mm-hmm. So I waited till we got a couple ops on the boards. We got a couple meetings booked from this signal in the board. And then I was like, okay, I've got some trust from the sales team. So now when I go incorporate some more data, they're not going to think it's all crap. Mm-hmm. So I would say kind of crawl, walk, one. Happy to keep going on if there's a specific question you want to dig into there.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful, and just that context alone, just take it one step at a time. Don't try to do everything in the beginning, or else, because like just from basic testing, you're not going to understand what is and isn't working, because you're going to have that variable interplay there. Yeah, so that, I think what you touched on there is an interesting one. So the website de-anonymization, when a target account is on your website, I know the impulse for many is I'm going to send them a DM. I'm going to give them a call. Hey, you ready to buy? Do you want our help in placing someone? But it's like, no, actually that's probably not what you want to do right off the bat, especially if you saw it there on your website and they did not take like whatever your core call to action is. They did not book a call with sales. They did not request to talk to you. They did not fill out a form or whatever it is. So how do you leverage these alerts? Because it's like, hey, if we only have 1,500 accounts and this person's on our website, we want to capitalize on this, but we also don't want to scare them off. So how have you thought about that from like the nurture and engagement perspective?
So we have two flows: customer, because like I said, upsell expansion's a big percent of our business, and then, target account, new logo. For customer, it's pretty a little bit more straightforward. If they have a customer that hits our website who is not in our CRM, aka they don't have a login to the product and they're not like in our CRM, meaning we've never interacted with them or they've been enriched or anything, then that gets sent to the AM to reach out, like kind of as that use case is like warm intro. Hey, I've previously worked with you, or I'm currently working with so-and-so at your company. I just wanted to introduce myself and the brand. Here's the data that we use. I'd love to get you to log in and get you trained. Like that's just pure account reach. On the other side though, depends on like what content that they might have looked at. And we have kind of just an outbound cadence that we put them in. That's personalized. So the first like 2 emails of that cadence is going to be personalized. And if they're high fit, they'll go into that cadence. If not, we kind of just send it like as a FYI to our rep to be like, oh, if so-and-so's on the website, maybe I should also reach out to X, Y, or Z. Because if someone in a department is on your website, you're probably going to get mentioned sooner or later internally. So that's kind of the goal, is that it's more of like, hey, how can we be helpful? Are you looking for a specific data point? Are you looking, how can we send you like helpful content versus, it's not really an initial call to book a meeting. It's a cadence that introduces ourselves, key differentiators, and then like gives them helpful content. Mm-hmm. That's really kind of the play.
Yeah. So how do you think about personalization there? Like what are you using? Because for the longest time, personalization is seen as like the tokens, hi, first name, like, or I saw you went to University of Michigan, go blue. It's like that's not really helpful, especially when, it's like, okay, 1,500 accounts that we're going after. How are you approaching them with like personalized, relevant content? What are you using? What kind of research goes into that before that even gets put into that cadence?
So in part of our target account enrichment, which I'm happy to get tactical in of how we step-by-step did that, is we know what categories that are relevant to that company. So I don't know, let's just say you're a brand that sells major appliances and small appliances and vacuums and headphones, which is, a lot of these brands sell a lot of different things. We are like, okay, here's your position. We don't know by your title what is but we think, and we can kind of see in our data that major small appliances is probably a higher market share that this brand has than others. So we're going to like just assume and tailor to like the industry. And we are going to send some like industry reports, some analyst data reports that we have. And we have reports all on our website, analyst type stuff that you can look at from a data perspective. And normally that will help us clarify if that's the right one that they're interested in and looking for. Or it's like, oh yeah, this is interesting, but like, do you have this for like last week? It's like, yeah, of course we do. Let's, sure. Let me pull that for you. So we kind of leverage something like that. A lot of the content on our website is going to be delayed data because obviously we sell real-time data. And so it'll be a quarter behind or something like that. And then we'll say, hey, do you want to see what this looks like for last month or last week? So that's kind of how we can, we do it. But I think at a core, it's, if you think about from like a service point of view, the top reasons like why you win and the top pain points that you see in your sales conversations, you could use that to say like, hey, you're probably asking yourself XYZ, or you're probably dealing with one of these three problems. Like, here's something helpful about one of them. And like maybe one of those three, you got a 33% chance of hitting one of those or something. Something a little bit more tailored.
And so, I mean, the main takeaway there, though, is you're giving them value. You're making an assumption on what it is, but you can also keep it open-ended enough where it's just like, hey, we also have other data sets like this. Like, are there others that you're curious about, or different time frames? But by giving first, instead of trying to like pitch them, hey, we've got these great data sets, are you interested? It's like, no, you showed them, you demonstrated the value that's already within there. So they saw it, and it's just like, oh, you're like, yeah, if you already have this, like, you just tweak it. I'm actually curious about TVs instead of vacuums, or last month instead of last week. But yeah, that's I think it's an underrated way to just like build trust, build credibility, let them see a sneak peek, because now everyone's getting peppered nowadays with just like bad biz dev where the impetus is on them to take action. It's just like, I didn't ask you to reach out to me. Don't make me work for this. Like, you need to demonstrate to me why I should reply to you.
Yeah, or something that's like helpful, even like a template, or something that is, hey, everybody out the gates wants to send like case studies and like all this stuff, but probably not there, right? To be like, or else they probably would have converted on your website. So it's like, how could we give you like something that might be helpful, or a template, or something that can help them in their role? Like, maybe they're not hiring right now, but maybe they need help structuring productive one-to-ones, or like, how do you keep your top talent like on your team? How do you keep those people? And like, what should you be thinking about? How should you be structuring like the culture on your team? Like, there's so many things that are around performance management and hiring, and trying not to let your A players get poached or go, that, the recruiter actually might be doing some of the poaching but for another company, but like, that could be helpful to the persona that's not really selling your exact service, but they're going to remember that. And I get, 6 months later, when they get that headcount budget approved, they're going to be like, yeah, maybe I should reach out to so-and-so about this.
Yep. That's a perfect example with it. Just keep getting tactical. This has been some of the fun stuff. So, all right, I'm getting started, or you just got started. Like, what are 1 to 2 of the most important things that I should be doing as you're getting started and executing this type of ABP strategy?
So step 1, we kind of talked about this, but build a list and segment and prioritize that list. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's just say you have a specific niche, and you're doing some of the work that we talked about earlier in the episode of figuring out like key characteristics of accounts where you win, and you could filter down. Maybe it's funding, maybe it's years in business, maybe it's number of employees, maybe it's a combination of all these things. And so you could start to build your company list. I would say, when you're first getting started, a smaller list is actually better than a bigger list when you're first getting started, because normally you can always, if you have more TAM and more accounts to add, you can always rotate them in over time. But really, the point of getting started is understanding, how do I pick accounts? How do I prioritize them? And prove that over time you can engage with these accounts. That's like all you're trying to do when you first get started, in like the first 6 months to a year, probably. That's literally the goal. So, if you start with a size of 20,000, I'm going to challenge you to make that list 5,000. Why? Because like, if depending on how big your organization is, you probably don't have the resources to go engage 20,000 accounts. Let's be honest. So like, start small, and then prioritize. So, this is going to take some data, but it's also going to take a little gut feeling as well. And I would say, don't get lost in the nuance of like, oh, my CEO is aligned to this tier versus the other tier. Just get alignment on the list, and the tiering and the prioritization can always be updated and changed. But like, don't let that, I've seen that really like stop teams or make that 2-month timeline like 4 months. And so once you kind of have a list, I would prioritize based on data. So for us, we have actually 4 tiers of accounts. We have a strategic account list, strategic accounts. Those are the whales. Those are the accounts that like we want to have the logos. We will put in the 2 years, 5 years of effort to go get those accounts and win that business. But they're not the accounts that we're likely going to close this year. They're like the strategic accounts, right? I encourage you to separate those. Because if they're only on your tier 1 account, everyone's going to be like, why aren't you closing tier 1 accounts? Clearly your tier 1 sucks. It's like, no, these are like strategics. It's more of a longer gameplay. Segment those out in a specific tier. Then we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So for us, our strategics is 35 accounts. That's it. Our tier 1 is around 150 accounts. Our tier 2, so like it gets a little bit wider each tier that we go. How we tier is based on what we can sell them and how much we can sell them. Like what's the opportunity into the account. That might be a little bit harder to quantify depending on your business. And then it's like the likelihood of the previous patterns to convert and to, willingness to like pay and stay. So kind of those, do we find, accounts that have 3 or more categories are going to be in our tier 1 and tier 2 versus a tier 3 account might only have 1 category and they might, only operate, I'm just making this up. They might only operate in this sector versus multiple sectors. So those prioritizations is like where you can get super specific to your business and are going to be 100% personal to you. And a little bit's like gut feel. Like we think this is a tier 1 because we know these top 4 data points are consistent, but we think we've observed that these 2 are more important than the other 2. Because sometimes you won't have data statistically significant to tell you that, but you'll have a little bit of gut goes in there.
Yeah. So this is all the data. And then I tease you up as the ultimate systems design, systems thinker as well. Like how are you translating this over to your CRM?
Yes. So that's the account data. No one sells to accounts. Everybody sells to people. So then you got to go get the people data. Obviously you can, define your job titles. I would highly define your job titles in like primary and secondary and maybe even third of job titles. So like core buyers you sell to, secondary buyers you sell to, and departments maybe you complement, something like that. Or like maybe you're like, oh, we always sell into the finance department hiring managers, and we sometimes sell into the operations hiring managers, and then maybe every now and then we sell into this other department over here. Just an example. So go get the people. I prioritize that by tier. So for my strategics and my tier 1, I'm getting everybody that is on that list. For my tier 2s and tier 3s, I'm not going to want to pay for all of that. Maybe I'll just get the primary personas to start. You can always expand that later. Now you need to think about what data do I need to put in my CRM and in what format based on how I'm going to use this later. So you need to think about how am I going to report on this? How am I going to personalize based on these variables? And then what variables are going to be helpful in workflows? I'm just going to use like HubSpot as an example, but like what type of things would I want to trigger off of? What types of fields would I want to maybe personalize off of? What type of fields do I want in my alerts? And then kind of start making that list. So for us, this is like people don't like, it's mind blowing, but I'm sure Sam, you've seen so many CRMs like I have. The fact that you just don't have like target account is true or false because it's the easiest ticker for reporting and dashboards. Wild. So all of your target accounts, true or false, you should have account, target account, tier. You should have like the personalized fields that make sense to you. So for us, it's account type, brand, retailer, manufacturer. And then we've got industry, we've got sub-industry, we've got product types, like all these things, because I want to be able to personalize content or tell someone or something to go look at, hey, this account is in appliances. Let's not send them something about TVs or something like that. And then another thing that a lot of people miss on the reporting side is account stage and being very diligent about the account stages in your target account list. So what do I mean? You and probably your management and leadership team are going to want to know, hey, great, we have this target account list. We're reaching out. We're doing all this stuff. We love it. How is it working? So how many accounts have been worked? Meaning, in X amount of period of time. How many accounts have we actually had a phone or some conversation with? Doesn't have to be a sales conversation, but like talked to. Great. How many accounts in X time period have we, booked a meeting with, like a sales meeting? That might be an opportunity. Okay. How many accounts have just responded to us? Like AKA two-way engagement. So like you can start to see the levels of how, if you don't have the account stages and you don't have a process and a workflow to change those account stages, it's a disaster to trying to show, besides number of meetings and number of deals and deals closed, it's a disaster to show how are we progressing on this strategy. So that's I don't know, my rant for the episode.
Yeah, no, it's so important. How much are you leveraging automation in that? So I know it's one thing like to ask whether you're a two-person recruitment firm or a large firm. Like I have our team of BDRs, like, are they going and manually saying like, hey, I know they're not sending an email out, it's getting crickets, and they're like, oh, did not engage, did not respond, or like they get an email back. They're focusing on continuing the conversation versus going back to the account and saying like, oh, they're engaged now. So how do you incorporate some of that automation and workflow so that you do have a sense for that? And then a part two on that, at what point do you kind of like reset that timeline? So say, for example, someone hit your website, they didn't do anything, they never became a customer, they never engaged. Like, do you reset them back to unengaged after a set period of time?
Yeah. So we have a couple account stages. We're really good tracking things post-opportunity. Every company is. It's pre-opportunity where everybody sucks. So we have active prospect, engaged prospect, and inactive prospect. So what we do for an active prospect, and we automate as much as we can, but sales is also going to have to kind of like look at a few things and maybe like change stuff because you can't automate for every single scenario ever. So active prospect, if they are added to a sequence, so we just use the normal tool in HubSpot for sequencing for outbound. If they're added to a sequence, they're automatically changed to active prospect. We are actively working them, so sales doesn't need to go tell me that they're actively working them. Engaged prospect is a workflow. If we get an email reply, a meeting booked for anything that's in active prospect, it moves it to engaged prospect. And then inactive prospect, it's like an automated set of time with no activity coming in on the account. So like they've been an active prospect for 90 days, but we haven't seen any activity. We're going to move them back into inactive prospect automatically. And the rep can manually say, never mind, I'm not prospecting this one anymore. I'm going to move it back to inactive. But, and the inactive, and then we have a stage that's like marketing target. All of ours are marketing targets. So we've got marketing target and marketing engaged. So those are kind of how we break those down with some automation. And we also use automation pretty heavily for the rep side on the contacts that they're working and assigned. So we use the lead object, which I'm a huge fan of. I know it's very controversial in HubSpot. So our team works out of leads and we automate the creation of them. We move them automatically into attempting if they're added to a sequence or we see a random email go out from a rep to an account or to a contact. If they reply, automatically moves the lead into connected. If we get any meeting booked, automatically moves it into meeting booked. So they don't need to like manage the stages and like the clunky work as much. And then, if they move it to qualified, automatically creates an opportunity and links everything for them. If there's no activity in 14 days on that lead, automatically disqualifies for unresponsive. So we have those things in there to kind of help aid in that. And then of course I do monthly audit, cleanup, reporting type of things.
Oh yeah, all the fun on that side. So active, engaged, inactive. The final piece of this is kind of like, well, when you do get them into that active stage, like what are you sharing with them? What are you sending? I know we kind of talked earlier about helpful content, but at what frequency? Or like, how are you thinking about engaging with them? Like, what are you sharing? What are you saying?
So the level of personalization and effort kind of depends on the tier of the account. And so for our strategics and tier ones, it's super hyper personalized. We're pulling like custom data from our platform to like send them not a report just about appliances, but a report about their brand compared to other brands in, ice cream makers that they might care about, something like that, So we spend a lot more time personalizing content and creating assets for the reps to send out. And also the reps spend more time. They might go into our platform and actually create a one-to-one video and then send the video out for those. So they're tailoring by persona as well. Tier threes, do we do all that? No, because, we don't have unlimited resources here. Another good thing is if we can even just engage. So that's if we're like actively working them. We don't have a ton of accounts. So another thing that I think about is how can we just provide one meaningful nugget of information every quarter to every account? That's just like, hey, here's something interesting. I thought this would, you might benefit from this, or here's something interesting going on in the industry. We're kind of an insights driven company. So we're trying to like share those insights out, like with all of our targeted accounts, like kind of not too much. If they're not engaging, we're not going to like go too hard, but like once a quarter, once every 6 months, hey, we thought this would be helpful. And obviously that whatever that's helpful is going to be higher personalized, the higher the tier is. I also will spend more marketing dollars on, okay, maybe we'll do more like one-to-one type of marketing or more industry niche marketing in ads or something like that for our strategics, tier one and tier twos. Maybe some direct mail goes out to our top, tier ones, but not tier twos, tier threes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the biggest takeaway here is it's just like ABP is prioritizing the accounts as well. You know who to go after, but also within all those, you could go after like who are the ideal ones? Who do you want to spend more time on? Who do you want to get to that level of personalization? Who can you just send something quarterly like, hey, this is interesting to you. We know you do executive search. Hey, this is interesting to you. We know that you hire minors, whatever that may be. All right. Final round as we start to wrap. So you've been building this out over the past 2 quarters plus, as you said just a little bit ago. Let's do 3 different things. What's worked and what hasn't worked for you. And we don't have to do completely rapid fire, but I'd almost say like just big takeaways that anyone listening can probably relate to or will come up against.
Actually, what's worked is using some of our data to be proactive. So we have some intent data at the contact level that we're operationalizing and using to be proactive in our outreach versus reactive and waiting for them to come to our website. And just, leveraging website activity has helped. And then not going after just one person with that, but going after like 3 to 5 people in the account. Normally we'll hit once out of those 3 to 5 or something. So that's one thing. 2 two other things are niche webinars. So like very like not number of attendees that we're focused on. We actually see that small webinars that are more tailored, that draw smaller number of people that register with a smaller number of people that attend than a huge webinar. And we have a really personalized custom offer convert at a much higher rate. And the more specific, we serve so many industries, and like this is my challenge as a marketer, that the more specific and tailored we could be to the category and product type, just the better. So that's what's working.
Mm-hmm. And it's so like that's been the theme in this series so far. Like, it's so counterintuitive. You want to go broad. You're like, oh, I'm missing out on something, but going to that level of depth is actually where it's all going to resonate. The relevance is there, and then they're just like, oh, this is absolutely worth it. So, okay. Love those wins. Now we all scrape our knees here and there as we learn a few things along the way. So what are a couple things that haven't worked for you?
We had like, I don't know. I had this idea. It was like, we have an analyst team. They're like subject matter experts, right? And so I was like, let's leverage them into an offer, a middle of funnel offer called Ask an Analyst. Well, I was like, this is genius. We're going to get so many, it's not like a full like thing. And, didn't get many conversions from it. I have my hypotheses as to why, but, so like every offer and every like piece of content is not going to land, even, especially probably the ones that you think will. That's always surprise you. Yeah, lead gen, content downloads, you know, I don't like run a ton of lead gen normally, but every new audience and every new industry, I think you should try things and see what works and doesn't so that you can prove what doesn't work for us. And then when we were actually thinking about outreach, we were really like single channel focused at first, and then like a limited amount of touches. Also doesn't work. We found that like you need to be on at least 3 channels, and like the cadences need to be for longer versus like short, quick, fast fire, more from like an outbound perspective.
Yeah. So those initial ones you were running, like what was the duration of them? And I'm assuming it was just like, we'll use email for an example. So it'd just be just an email campaign for how long or how many sends?
Yeah, only like 3 to 4 sends, right? 3 mainly. And, you know, no other, probably like 2 weeks. So, you know, like an email go every like 3 or 4 days.
So you're hoping you catch someone at the right time versus now it's like you said, okay, multiple channels. What's kind of the duration that you're engaging them with at this point? Yeah,
email's crowded. Phone is like getting, you know, depending on your industry, phone, recruiters, LinkedIn, who knows? They may have other communities that are really popular too.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, Sidney, this was fun. I appreciate you coming in and hopping on with this one. I know I get to learn from you every time. So I was like, I bet there's some other people who might get a thing or two from this as well. So before I get into my final wrap up spiel, like anywhere that people should go to learn about you, about OpenBrand or anything else?
I'm probably most active on LinkedIn, Sidney Waterfall. I'm the only one, unless like there's a random profile AI bot out there now, but I'm the only legit one. And yeah, just openbrand.com, and that's where you can find me.
Okay. I love it. Well, Sidney, thank you again for joining us. So as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode and you're not sure where to go next, we have a link to a similar one. And you can find that in the show notes within the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. We do have full video episodes available on YouTube. If you ever have questions, send them our way, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you love this episode, please make sure to leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes you 3 seconds, and it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That was an incredible interview with Sidney Waterfall. Until next time, bye, y'all.